Hello there, I'm Mrunal and welcome to my channel, and in today's video, we're discussing the book The Kite Tournament by Khalid Hosseini. In this video, I would be sharing with you a small synopsis of my own based on this book, which would include a summary, the central themes, the writing style, a few words about the author, and then lastly, my honest review about this book. So make sure you watch it till the very end and let's get into it. To begin with the summary, The Kite Tournament is a war-based story where the conflicts are not just between two forces or two nations, but also between two friends, two blood relatives, two brothers, and most importantly, with one's own self. It is written in a first-person perspective, where the story is narrated by a protagonist, Amir, and the antagonists in physicality are the Russians and the Talibans and Assef. But in hushed tones, it is also the past of Amir, the one which he tries to forget, the one which he tries to run from when he flees to America from Afghanistan, but the one which also manages to catch hold of him decades later. The story is written in the past tense, where Amir is shown to be describing his childhood, his Baba, his newfound life in California, his marriage, his journey back to Kabul, and all the groundbreaking instances that shaped him to what he turned into. Amir is originally a privileged Sunni Muslim residing in a big house in a small town in Kabul, and he was surrounded by all the luxuries one could ever ask for, including personal servants. Their personal servants were always on the most trusted lists of his Baba. They were Ali and Hassan. Ali was shown to be Hassan's dad, and Hassan in this story was a friend, a well-wisher, a loyal servant, and a symbol of truth, innocence, and misery. The story proceeds in a way telling us about the true picture of Afghanistan, a land of royalty and pride on one side, and poverty and death on the other. Amir pretty much belonged to the safe and protected upper class of Afghanistan, and he always had everything he ever wanted, except for one thing, which was his father's validation and appreciation. And for Baba's side of the story, he always loved Amir and taught him values. But there was only one issue, that Baba was afraid Amir would turn into him. He is shown to be a very fierce man who even battled the wild bears. He is generous of nature and had lovingly helped and welcomed every person irrespective of where they come from. He was an atheist, and like Amir, he had a past too, the one which made him familiar to his son. Amir's childhood was significantly pleasant. Amir and Hassan would spend their days playing together. Amir would read Hassan's stories from books and also the ones which he himself wrote. And though they never discussed it face to face, they had a really strong bond of friendship. Hassan would always know what is going on in Amir's mind by just looking at his face. And that is something Amir always pondered over, as to how could an illiterate read what is unsaid. Owing to this quality, Hassan always knew that his master and friend Amir wanted to shine in his father's eyes. Amir just knew what he wanted to do, so he decided to take place in a kite tournament which was taking place in his town. Amir desperately wanted to win the tournament in order to prove to his dad, and to help Amir win, Hassan promised to be his kite runner. And just as he promised, he ran with the spool of thread for him and also did a full run of the town after they won by saying the words, "For you, 1,000 times over." These words were the defining words which proved the loyalty and love which Hassan had for Amir. But sadly, these are the most heartbreaking words ever. After the winning strike, when Amir was surrounded by applause and chaos over his win, when people were peeping from their rooftops to look at the mega event, Hassan set out to do a full run of the town with the winning kite. And sadly, that was the last when Amir saw him smile. What follows next is the most disturbing. Hassan gets raped by Assef, a boy who is as old as Amir. He patronized Hitler and oppressed Hazaras with his power. a symbol of how the ruling class truly are. And the worst part of this was, Amir saw it with his own eyes and he allowed it. He could have faced Assef and stopped him. He could have protected Hassan, but his pride and his desire to walk with the winning kite to his father and win all the praise prevented him from doing the rightful. But the story doesn't stop here. Amir regrets his betrayal his whole life. Hassan returns with the kite and blood-stained pants. His lips were smeared with blood too. The white snow darkened with each drop of blood that fell. He wasn't even able to stand. Amir saw this all, but he decided to ignore it. And after this, Amir turned into an insomniac. He would spend nights wondering if Hassan knows he was there, and that if anyone knows what happened with Hassan that day. Hassan would sleep off most of the days later. Amir and Hassan eventually stopped playing together. Tired of this, Ali and Hassan decided to leave Baba's mansion. Baba begged, he even wept tears, something which Amir had never seen in his Baba's eyes. But Ali and Hassan were determined to leave, and the day Amir last saw Hassan was in the car carrying him and Ali away. After this, the story directly skips to the Russian invasion, in which Baba and Amir flee to California and find refuge there. Amir pursues a degree in English and falls in love with a beautiful Pashtun girl, Soraya, whom he describes has a face of a Persian princess and has hair as lovely as velvet. Life in California was beautiful, but unfortunately Baba passes away a few days after Amir and Soraya have their Afghani wedding. Amir really missed his father, but Soraya's presence made it less hard on him. The couple could not bear a child, and they were childless for 15 years of their marriage. Amir thought this was the price he was paying for his betrayal in the past. And here comes the twist. Out of nowhere, Amir gets a call from Rahim Khan, one of his dad's close confidants. Amir grew up in Rahim Khan's presence, and he always saw him as a trusted friend. Rahim Khan fled to Pakistan after the Russian invasion, and he managed to keep contact with Baba until he died. Years later, Rahim Khan called up Amir because he wanted him to fulfill his one last wish. He wanted Amir to fly back to Kabul in order to do it. And as he convinced Amir on the phone, he even said the words, "There is a chance to be good again." Even Rahim Khan knew about the untold secret. Amir's mother had died of giving him birth. Amir and Hassan, 1 year after Amir, were fed from the same breasts. Not only this, but Amir also knew this much, that Hassan's first ever word was nothing but Amir. But he didn't know about one big truth, something which made Amir and Baba similar. And that's just what Rahim Khan wanted Amir to know. After gathering up all the courage, Amir goes to Pakistan and meets Rahim Khan, only to discover that Hassan, whom he only knew as a servant boy that grew up with him, was nobody but his half-brother. And that Hassan was born out of Baba's unfaithfulness with a beautiful Hazara woman. She was the wife of Ali. Ali, being infertile, accepted Hassan as his son, and the ashamed Hazara woman ran away the day she birthed Hassan. After finding about this, Amir was angry. He felt like his world has fallen apart. But Rahim Khan did not lose hope. He still persuaded Amir to go back to Kabul and do that one last task. While Amir was gone and his life was normal in America, a lot followed in Afghanistan. Ali was killed and Hassan lived with his family. He even had a son named Sohrab. But unfortunately, Sohrab had to live in a dirty and dingy orphanage as both his parents got killed by the Taliban. And Rahim Khan only wanted one thing, is that Sohrab gets saved from becoming just another orphan in Afghanistan, and he wanted nobody but Amir to do it. Amir somehow agrees to go onto this mission, and he does. And he now sees the true face of Afghanistan, the one ruined by the Taliban. After facing a lot of hardships, Amir finds where Sohrab is. But to get him, he had to face Assef, the devil himself. He had joined hands with the Taliban and he still raped, murdered and abused innocent men, women and children. He had captured Sohrab in return of money for the orphanage which still housed the last of the remaining orphan children left alive in Kabul. And Sohrab's fate with Assef was just as what happened to his father. Assef always said that there is a price of everything, the same motto with which he raped Hassan, in revenge of when Hassan saved Amir once from Assef's hold. For Sohrab now, Assef gave heavy blows on the body of Amir. He broke all his bones, almost made him lifeless, but he was saved with the outstanding skills of Sohrab with the slingshot. And after this, they ran, they escaped, they made it. There were several hurdles in getting Sohrab to Amir's home in California, and in this long period of awaiting, Sohrab and Amir developed a loving bond. But Sohrab missed his family. He just wanted his old family life to return back. He thought he has sinned and that his father must be looking at him with disgust from the heavens. So much misery for a little child. He even attempted suicide, but luckily he was saved. Amir took him home with him and he was lovingly welcomed by Soraya and her parents. But the child's smile had faded. He rarely ever spoke. He only looked at the Polaroid which was given to him by Amir and looked at the picture of his mom and dad. It was a sad sight. But Amir never lost hope. One day, in a usual Afghani gathering of all the refugees in California, a kite tournament starts. And in this, Amir finally recounts his half-brother's last words to him, "For you 1,000 times over," and runs. Just a hint of smile appears on Sohrab's face when they win the kite fight with joy that reminded Sohrab of his dad and Amir of his half-brother. It didn't solve anything, but it was a sign that redemption and peace is possible. And maybe that the story does end happily for all the characters. So this was the whole story, and now let's discuss what is written between the lines. Firstly, I would like to appreciate the author Khalid Hosseini. He has magic in his words and is blessed with the pen. He is an exceptional writer and I love the style of writing. I like it when authors describe each and every situation so well that you express the story as if you're a part of it while you're reading it. And in this matter, Hosseini has done a great job. Each word was heavy on the heart, and the settings and the narrations on point. He has used imagery in such a way that your vision is blued from the start, indicating that something dark is bound to happen. The read is slow, and this is not one of the books at all which you would give a second read, and it is also not one of the books which you would finish in one sitting. It took me an unestimated amount of time to finish this book. I started it in January and I finished it in the second week of February. It was because the first few pages itself, which were revealing the plot and the basic setting of the story, were so hard on me that I couldn't continue. It wasn't like I did not like it. It was so beautifully explained that I felt like I'm part of the story, and it was a hell of an experience. But I wanted it to be slow and I wanted to take my own time as I went through it. Such is the impact of the story. My heart has cried immeasurable tears while reading this book, and my eyes have definitely moistened with each turn and twist that took place in the story. I even cried when I finished this book because I felt like I would never be able to look at this book in the same way ever again, and also that I would never have the heart of reading it again. I loved every bit of it. And I also feel that I may not have been able to voice the story with the same majesty as it is written with, which is why I recommend you to read this book. It is a little too sensitive on the younger audiences, but it is a masterpiece which you would not want to miss out on. Now let's talk about the central themes of the story, which are war, friendship, and redemption. War and friendship are pretty ironical to be talked about in the same line as the central themes of the story, but that is just how the story is woven. I think I've discussed war and friendship quite elaborately while I was summarizing the story. So now I think I should talk about redemption. Amir is on a constant search of redemption. In the first half, he is running behind his dad's approval and appreciation, and in the second half, he is running behind redemption. He just wants to make peace with what caused his loving bond with his friend, with his half-brother. He just wants to make up for his betrayal some way. Amir always wondered on this question whether Hassan was his friend or just another mere Hazara servant which was in his house. If only he knew the answer back then, he wouldn't have been in this situation in the present. The ending is left quite perplexed. I myself wondered if Sohrab ever accepted Amir and Soraya as his new family, or if Amir ever forgave himself. But the ending is more symbolic than the entire story. But there are chances that Amir got the redemption he needed, because in the end, Amir becomes a kite runner. A kite runner same as the one who sacrificed his life for his master. There is an extensive use of Farsi in this book which makes you feel a little more connected to it. In total, it was a very remarkable and touching read. I would say I'm deeply attached to this book. I feel like we are all like Amir in some way. We are all running from something. But unfortunately, only some of us have the chance to face what we are running from in our life. Not that we don't have it. Some of us just don't want to face it. Like it was the case with Baba and Amir in this story. Baba loved Hassan equally, but he never had the courage to face it and show it to the entire world that Hassan is his blood too. This story actually made me question a lot of things, and there are a lot of analogies that I could attach to this book. Which is why I also think that this would be a little heavy if you're too sensitive, and if you like to have a light read, and if you just see reading as a hobby and something to make you feel relaxed. Otherwise, you would fall into a vast pool of questions after reading this book. But it is definitely my new favorite, and I would keep talking about such books and keep bringing up my new favorites in the form of videos. And this is how I'll see you guys in my next video. Like, share and subscribe to my channel, and thank you so much for watching this video, or as they say, Takshakhor. Until then, bye!